Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. I'm hoping you guys are all having a fantastic day. So I changed up the hair a bit today, I just parted it. Maybe you could see better, more of my face. But we're going to be talking a bit, like a minute or two, about this snowstorm that occurred and how it performed and how the forecasts, how good they were. And then we're quickly going to change our gears to a potential very cold Arctic outbreak right around Christmas and a potential Christmas snowstorm. So while it is a bit away, we will take a break kind of from these intense, forecasting. I mean, this storm was just one to remember. And there's more on the way, though. This is just the beginning of winter. New York City got its earliest 9-inch snowfall on record, and there may be more on its way based on how the pattern is shaping up. Alright, so keeping it short and sweet, this snowstorm was a historic snowstorm. And I understand why people at first were skeptical when I said it might be historic. And it truly, I'm glad that that what I said came true. It's not always, but this time it was definitely a true one. So notice, for Boston, for example, I was looking at my video from yesterday, forecasted it around 12 to 13 inches. They got a bit above that, so it did really do as well as forecasted. Pretty spot on. Connecticut's really pretty good job as well. Some lighter amounts towards the coast. New York City did get a bit less snowfall. They were forecasted to get around 13 to 14, and generally it was between 10 to 13 inches. So it wasn't a bust, but it was a bit of a underperformer for New York City and maybe portions of southeastern Pennsylvania. But really anywhere else it overperformed, and it overperformed drastically. Notice Ohio got really what they were forecasting, 7-8 inches. Pittsburgh got more than forecasted. They got well into that foot range across many locations, which wasn't called for. But, I mean, Binghamton. You've probably been hearing all day about the news. Look at that. 44 inches just south and west of Binghamton. National Weather Service in Binghamton, 42 inches. Just absolutely incredible. This band, I was up till around 4 o'clock in the morning, not because of this system, but just that's what I usually do. I'm a really night owl. And I saw this giant band of snow setting up. It was really, really heavy rates. It was looking like, that would be the sweet spot. But I just did not imagine that this much snow would fall that quickly. And I don't think they have it now, but earlier in the night, there was, I think, 36 at 5 o'clock. 36 inches in the National Weather Service of Binghamton. Now there's 42. But then they said that 14 inches fell in around 2 to 3 hour time frame. That is a 5 to 7 inch per hour rate snowfall. That is basically as heavy as snow can get. It literally can't get heavier than that. And you probably won't see it getting heavier, across the Northeast at any given point. And it just goes to show you, overall, this system was not that impressive. However, with the correct environment and the loads of moisture from Atlantic, was just enough combination to produce this band of snow. State of emergency is issued for the whole state of New York. Notice that obviously southern New York did get a lot of snow, 13, 14 inches, but really overperformed across Vermont, New Hampshire, well into the 40-inch mark, which, if you recall, yesterday I was looking at some of the models and they were showing, I think there was one model that showed around 40 inches as their max, or 44 inches. And I was just saying that's unrealistic because that's what any normal person would say. And the National Weather Service was forecasting 12 to 18 for Binghamton. 12 to 18, and if you don't believe me, go back to my yesterday's video where I forecasted it and I was looking at them. And now they received 42 inches. So just an absolute eventful storm. And as early as it is, I think, Binghamton, I don't think they'll see another snowstorm that brings them 44 inches this year. That's just not happening. New York, maybe getting another snowstorm that brings them 9 inches. Again, this winter could be, one of those winters where it's a really good start and a slow end, or it could continue. But again, this will be a hard-to-beat system. Definitely the biggest one of 2020, not just this winter, but even the last part of the 2019-2020 winter. All right. That aside, I do also want to show you that Indiana also did get, again, those decent amounts of snow, 4 or 5 inches. So this thing was a beast. But as I mentioned, there is more snow and more activity on its way. And of course, like weather is, there's not many breaks to take really from this. Now, it is a few days out, really more than a few days, almost a whole week out. So there's a lot of things that are going to be sorted still. But It's if you recall, the last two systems that occurred was this nor'easter and the one that dropped snow across Wisconsin and Michigan. That turnaround from those two systems was like 2 3 days, three to 4 days. This time it will be a bit longer, which is nice, because honestly I start getting myself lost with which system to cover, this one, that one. Now we could focus a bit more. Notice, as I mentioned yesterday in the latter part of my video, the northwest is getting a lot of precipitation, and that will continue to be the trend, especially the further north and west you go. The Sierra got a bit of snow. Utah will get some snow into tomorrow, or late today into tomorrow. Then this low moves out into the plains, but really doesn't do much. We see a dragging cold front from a system that is way across central Canada. And earlier models were showing no interaction with the Gulf of Mexico moisture, right? Now the models are showing a bit more. Still nothing significant for the Midwest, Illinois, Indiana, Michigan. Nothing really significant. Some models are showing a bit of snow. Again, that may happen. The high res are kind of supporting that, but it will be very marginal. The temperatures will be a heavy wet snow if it does occur, but the amounts don't seem high. You can see the European doesn't support that at all whatsoever. What it does do is bring more heavier rain from the coast, a strong disconnect, and we have another system come through from the northwest that kind of pulls this moisture upwards. And some models, I say some because not all, are indicating at a potential pretty large system across the east coast again. Not a completely different setup from this past one we had, but you can see that the European definitely starts bringing the moisture up, right? Some snow showers, rain showers, and it really doesn't do much for this system across the east coast, but it combines it with the Clipper, right? Comes from the Midwest, or really Canada. Classic Alberta Clipper through Minnesota, Wisconsin. Again, some signs. We'll have to see how that actually plays out. Rain, snow, and notice that it tries kind of orchestrating the system right here off the coast. Several models attempt to do that. Some show more success with this system, others don't. The European does, but it's further off coast into southern Canada, which is still a concern. Obviously, I have viewers from these locations, so you could expect heavy snow, but again, it's still pretty far out, and this may continue shifting towards the coast of the United States, or may continue shifting out even into the Atlantic, not even affecting Canada. Now, this is where the Arctic cold air, if you will, comes in play. We have a pretty strong low pressure that, again, comes off the west, loaded with Pacific moisture, and this is now Wednesday, right before Christmas Eve, right? Notice, it's a pretty strong system, not a lot of precipitation in the form of rain, mainly all snow. And what we don't see on this is the cold air, but we have a high pressure. The storm system drives this down. Very, very cold air. Coldest air of this season, undoubtedly, which really doesn't say much as this season has been pretty warm. But, it's always a shock to see that first cold air. And notice that the European does develop this a bit. It starts developing a cold front, a bit of ice, really nothing significant, and brings a load of moisture onto Canada. The other models are way, way, way more bigger proponents of this system. The European really keeps things as quiet as possible compared to other models. Now, what it does show, though, as all other models are showing, and what I think the greatest confidence is the cold air. So up until then, moderate. Areas where the snow fell, the northeast will be chilly. That snow covers southeast, the southern U.S. also a bit chillier. Northern United States pretty warm. In fact, really warm across some of these locations. It may feel like early November rather than mid-December. But notice that passes through, right? It's continued as we see that flow off the Pacific Ocean. Really warm temperatures, at least for December. That's why snow will be kind of hard to come by and get a snowstorm track, right? But that all changes the week of Christmas. Notice that we see our last pushes of warm air going to the south and east, and we see a pretty large chunk of cold air push through. And the reason being, right, so this isn't, it's cold air, but I wouldn't really consider that a polar vortex. But the difference, from even a couple of days, 15 to 25 degrees below average, that's a difference of 15 plus 25, which is exactly 40 degrees. That is pretty significant, right? And notice that, again, this is relatively short-lived, but it does get pretty intense, especially if any snow does fall with the preceding system, which the European doesn't really do much with it. If you recall, it just tries dragging a cold front across the southeast. But notice right after that, we do see pretty warm air move back in. But so whether or not that's long-lived, we'll have to see. It doesn't look, abnormally warm. It's a bit warmer, but nothing extraordinary. 2-meter temperature shaded, just to give you a kind of a good estimate of how cold it will be from that. By the way, it won't be really, balmy with this pattern, this warmer pattern. It will be maybe balmy for December, if you will. 40s and some 50s, though 30s towards the north. The south will be more nice and warm, but that's atypical. And then notice as we push towards that cold outbreak, this cold air has been locked up in Canada, and now it's just really the taste of it, just a little taste. These are the morning lows you could see on Thursday, Christmas Eve. Many locations above below 0 Fahrenheit. This is the day on Christmas Eve. You can see Chicago not getting above 11 degrees. So a very, very cold Christmas, if not one of the coldest ones on tap for portions of the northern United States, North Dakota, Minnesota. This is the daytime on Christmas. Hold on. Daytime Christmas, you can see it starts moving further towards the east, but again, Chicago, 14. Not getting above freezing across the Upper Peninsula, the Northeast. Well, you can see we start seeing warm air infiltrate back in. But again, it's this is warm, considered warm for December, obviously. And notice the Northeast, again, sticking with that cold air as that snowpack, 40 inches, even if it's in the 40s for the next week, that will most likely at least stick around to bring a few inches of a white Christmas. That'll bring a white Christmas for many locations there. I don't know about New York City, the coastal areas, depending on how warm they get. But again, it will be tough for them to melt that off really that quickly. But notice how relatively close or very cold air is right across Manitoba and Saskatchewan, Manitoba. It's very cold and it's up there. It's just a matter of a pattern change to drive it down. Let's take a look at other models, right? The European was honestly one of the more boring models for this Christmas setup, Christmas eventful storm. The Canadian is a model that comes out at the same frequency or same time span as the European, twice a day, one at noon, one at midnight. And notice that this is what it does. So really a lot of precipitation going into the northwest and southwestern Canada. We do have that phasing of these two events, the cold front from the system and a flow from the Gulf of Mexico moisture. The Canadian definitely shows more aggressive kind of traits with this, even a bit of snow across Indiana, Ohio, and it does start showing characteristics of a low pressure while it's in the northeast. Now, it really sticks most of the heaviest snow out of here, and it does have that clipper, the Alberta clipper that the European showed, but it's kind of combines it with this nor'easter. And it really brings heavy snow into portions of Canada, but not necessarily the northeast. It's definitely something you'll have to watch as it's a very strong storm, 968. That could be very interesting. But the Christmas storm I'm speaking of is this thing right here. Notice, widespread snow across much of Michigan, Illinois, Missouri. Not heavy, at least from this model run's perspective, but it is pretty widespread and lots of cold air following. So if this system, as you can see right here, decides to move up to the north in this fashion, that would bring a very large snowstorm. Whether or not that will happen is very hard to see, but most models have been hinting at some sort of an active pattern on the Christmas week. So looking at total snowfall from the Canadian model, you could see that in the next 240 hours, it shows a more active pattern, though again, this is pretty early and this could change. We don't even have certainty on that first system. And if you were to take a look at, say, the GFS parallel, that's the same model, GFS parallel, notice it shows snow, right, but further towards the north, and a lot of this stuff right here is from the first system that already passed, except this model run is from midnight, which is when that storm, the big one that dropped 40 inches, was still occurring, right, our past storm. So let's take a look at what the GFS parallel does, as this is an upgraded GFS model. Notice right now really not much, right? Cold air across the northeast following that system shows that dragging cold front through the Midwest, some snow showers and rain showers occurring, right? But really nothing significant. And the northwest continuing to see showers and rain. It does phase these a bit better than the European, similar to what the Canadian did. Again, possibly bringing some snow for Indiana, Ohio, maybe Detroit. But the temperatures will be marginal, so there could be an on and off switch between light snow and light rain. This is this upcoming weekend, which is not far away, but there's still a lot of uncertainty, which shows you how uncertain the models are. And notice, the GFS parallel does show that clipper, and that nor'easter, potentially a low pressure, really not a nor'easter. And does it phase these two things together? We don't know. It may. It's showing signs of moisture, right, and the potential, but it doesn't really do so. And then it starts showing that Christmas snowstorm in a similar fashion to the European, right? That northern piece, no southern moisture. But then as you push towards, again, the 23rd, 24th, it starts developing a southern component more aggressively than the European, but a bit less than what the Canadian does, and doesn't have like a second low pressure that drives up. It just sweeps all the moisture off, brings a lot of cold air in, but then it calls it a day. And then in the future, really far out, it shows continued cold air, moisture, and a relatively active pattern that we'll have to watch. Now, let's take a glance at the GFS. Now, this is the GFS. I just showed you the GFS parallel. And let's actually show you, let's move through this. So again, pulling away, we have that cold front. We have a bit of snow across the northwest, right? Quite a bit with the GFS model, and especially by the coastal areas. We see a better phasing than, again, what the European shows. And look what the GFS does. While it doesn't show a blockbuster nor'easter of any kind, especially compared to what we've seen, it honestly does show a pretty organized low pressure, more organized than the one we've seen, right? Comes from the south and the southwest, right? It doesn't bring any snow to the United States coastal areas like New York City or upstate New England, other than Maine. But notice again that clipper, way more disorganized from the GFS model, but look, it shows a beast, similar to what the Canadian is showing. And really something to watch, because even if this doesn't form snow, the winds this drives off the lakes could produce powerful lake effect, and obviously just very strong winds, which could blow around that snow that has been fallen with the past system. So that could actually issue some even blizzard warnings, not because of snow falling, but because of snow blowing, which is a possibility. It's called a ground blizzard. And the GFS yet again hints at a Christmas snowstorm around the 23rd, 24th in a quite a bit different fashion, but relatively similar to what the rest of the models are showing. Starting off as the northern component, then adding a southern component from the Gulf of Mexico, and lots of cold air behind it. A very classic low pressure, very stout. You could see cold front, warm front, and then here's that low pressure driving all of that. So a classic scenario for a pretty strong setup, but again, different from what the other models are showing. And the GFS just shows very, very cold air, equally as cold as what really all the other models are showing. And this is Christmas morning, and notice 2-meter temperature shaded, many locations below freezing, many below 0 Fahrenheit. So that would be a pretty cold, and if not a record-breaking Christmas in terms of cold for some locations. Not all, but some for sure. But again, whether or not the magnitude of this will grow or shrink in the coming days, we'll have to see, but it has been hinted at for a while. Now, regarding, I want to go back to this GFS, that nor'easter, that first one, right? That potential one that is very strong here. There's a lot of uncertainty, and the reason I'm saying that is, well, let's take a look at the model run prior. This is the 18Z one that was issued literally less than an hour ago. Right there, we have that system, right? That Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday time frame. Model run back, let's see what it shows. Much further towards the west, right, or towards the east, further offshore, and doesn't really develop any system that tracks into Canada. Further out, yes, but of minimal impacts. Now, let's take a model run prior to that, the 6 o'clock one, so today in the morning, so not long ago, and you'll see how much has changed. We have a system, right, a pretty strong one, a low pressure, driving, though again, mainly missing and not being as strong as the recent model is showing. So whether or not this shifts on, a bit of more cold air comes through, that could be, the difference between a snowy event and a lighter event. But we also have that clipper, which again will be something to watch for, as that may kind of orchestrate a nor'easter of its own. But it doesn't look if that will be supportive with this setup, only if it catches up and speeds up with this system. But again, you can see it's been showing in the models that Christmas snowstorm for quite a while, and as well with that cold air. And let's take a look back to 24 hours ago, so yesterday, when the big one that has already occurred was still occurring. So let's take it forward. Again, this is old. This already occurred. We have that phasing of this pretty well. Light rain. It was a bit further towards the west with this phasing 24 hours ago. but really doesn't show much of any signs of storm. The Clipper further towards the north, this way out, not even considering to speak of that. And again, it showed that Christmas snowstorm potential as a weak Clipper. So really things have intensified over the last few model runs, and that seems to be the trend. The trend is your friend, right? Regarding the high-res models like the NAM 12KM, let's see what it shows. So this is the 18Z1. Notice a bit of snow for it in northwestern Indiana, northern Indiana, really even to southern central Indiana. Maybe Chicago, Detroit, though again, just unorganized precipitation moving. And whether or not this organizes, the NAM doesn't go out that far. We would have to see. Though most models are generally kind of on that plane. If you were to take a look at the RGEM, a kind of a similar model to the NAM, you could see that what it shows is, again, unorganized precipitation, weak phasing, some rain, maybe some snow depending on the actual atmospheric conditions available. Maybe even some moderate snow at times occurring this weekend across the Ohio Valley, but really nothing consistent. And as you can see, if this moves off further and further, we don't really see more further organization. But this will really start coming in the next few days. And probably by tomorrow, I could give a better forecast and a better idea. Because there's a lot of moisture, and really the setup is right. You can see that we have a cold area right there with that jet stream, right? We have that cold air max. And around these jet stream, these corners, these southwestern corners of the jet stream is really where it's the fastest. And if the precipitation and setup it gets a bit more compacted, closer together, not so far apart, it could easily spin up a system and develop a low pressure that tracks relatively close to the coast, and it doesn't even have to be that far away from the coast, or it could be pretty far still and have impacts in terms of wind, strong snow. So again, it looks pretty interesting. And then behind this system, another one, right? So several potential storms, and obviously that very cold air Arctic outbreak. But that's basically it for today's video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I realized I'm way over 20 minutes at this point, but I just love talking, and this is what I love doing. Just look at that. That's very impressive right there. Just looks almost pleasing to look at. But then also notice that a lot of the west has also been seeing some pretty good amounts of snow, and it will continue. You can see Sierra Nevada. Okay, that's it for me. I'll catch you guys in the next episode. See ya. Bye.